Robert Ouko's murder in February 1990 remains to be Kenya's most prominent assassination after that of Tom Mboya. A cabinet minister in charge of foreign affairs was uprooted from his home in the dead of the night, only for his body to be discovered 4 days later while still burning at a hill near his home in Koru, present-day Kisumu County. Now, 4 regimes have governed Kenya so far, but Ouko's killers are yet to be identified. Instead, suspects, witnesses, or close associates to Ouko have died mysteriously in the process. This is NTV Presents. My name is Duncan Haemba. Robert John Ouko was Kisumu Town Member of Parliament and Kenya's Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation when he was assassinated on the night of 12th and early morning of 13th February 1990. The minister was among an 83-member delegation that had accompanied President Daniel Moi to the United States on January 27, 1990, to attend a prayer breakfast meeting in Washington, D.C. on 1st February. Upon jetting back into the country on Sunday 4th, it is reported that Ouko visited the then Internal Security Permanent Secretary Hezekiah Oyugi at his home for what was described as an urgent meeting. Then, Monday at 9 a.m., Ouko, together with his PS Bethwel Kiplagat, went to State House Nairobi for a meeting with President Moi and the then Canadian High Commissioner. Later that day, he left for his Koru home in Kisumu. The family remained behind. Ouko had left Nairobi for good. Unknown to him, he was living on borrowed time. A cloud of death was dancing in the air, hanging over his head. The next 11 days were dramatic, tragic, and heartbreaking. First, he was involved in a suspicious road accident at Awasi on his way home, which he escaped unhurt. A few days later, he was abducted from his home on the night of February 12th. 4 days later, on Friday 16th February, his charred body was found at the foothill of Got Alila, 3 kilometers from his Koru home. Reports indicate it was still burning. One of the country's top ministers had been assassinated. These are the images obtained from the autopsy conducted at Nairobi's Lee Funeral Home. Ouko's body was barely recognizable, and one might easily mistake it for a log of wood pulled from the fire. Detectives from Scotland Yard had a hard time extracting samples from the charred body. Those who murdered the minister seem to have had instructions to ensure he should not be recognized. Only his face and skull saved the day, making it slightly easier to have the body identified. Government pathologist Jason Kaviti had concluded suicide as the cause of his death, but when the Scotland Yard detectives assessed the remains, their verdict was a resounding no. It was an assassination. His skull, seen at this point on the table, was taken to London's Guy's and St. Thomas Hospital and has never been returned to the country nor handed over to the Ouko family. Veteran journalist Caleb Atemi and photographer Yahya Mohammed from Daily Nation's Kisumu Bureau were the first scribes to arrive at the scene. They found police officers all over Got Alila Hill supposedly conducting a search for a body. Meanwhile, a 17-year-old Hearts boy, Patrick Shikuku, had already spotted the remains and informed two individuals who immediately alerted area chief, and the information was relayed to local police in Koru immediately.
But when I came to the scene, it didn't make sense why they were searching the body that had already been found. So I believe that the national system organize a search so that they can make the story appear to be authentic. Yeah, Mohammed and I were also just walking around the hill. Then I stumbled upon the remains and called Yaya. But we never got to release the photos because they take your film and everything.
When they filed their report, it was described as horror. It was a charred body and was still burning slowly. I'd covered a few deaths as a reporter, and I was familiar with what they call in medical terms rigor mortis, when the body takes a pugilistic stance. So here was the remains of an individual. The skull is familiar, but then the hands are in this pugilistic position, but it's actually bones, and the rest of the body up to the legs is ash. So it has a skeletal version of the legs. The entire torso is burnt off and still burning. Then it's just the hands and the skull that is remaining. Scotland Yard detectives led by Superintendent John Troon arrived in the country 5 days later on February 21st to investigate the horrific murder, taking over from the Kenya police since it was already seen as a government-sanctioned elimination. Ouko's body had been burnt almost beyond recognition.
And we immediately, that afternoon, undertook a second post-mortem on the body of Dr. Ouko. There was at least 20 people there from the Kenyan government side, which should not have been there in the first place, but they were. But they included Ouko, they included Kaviti, the government pathologist at that time, and lots of others, but they kept back. This PM went on for 4 hours or so. The state of the body was an awful state. All the chest area had disintegrated and gone, where they had poured diesel fuel over it and set it alight. Of course, diesel takes a long, long time. It's not like petrol will go woof. Diesel will just burn slowly through the body.
So I think the face was deliberately left so that they can identify the person and probably make a statement that whoever pursues the path that Ouko was pursuing would also follow the same route.
A 5-liter jerrycan, a matchbox, a pair of gumboots, a 5-cell torch that was still on, a briefcase, a walking stick, and a jacket that had a pistol were items that were found beside Ouko's burning body. According to the former Daily Nation journalist, a narrative that the late minister had died by suicide could not add up, considering his ankle had been broken and he had also been shot on the head.
What made me curious was that when we arrived, the entire hill was dry. The grass was actually golden brown. That time of the year when the sun is scorching. So when I said that the fire consumed him to the bone, but only burnt a small portion of grass around him, my story appeared together with a government piece trying to create a picture of suicide. So we had my splash and a government statement. So university students are the ones who picked up the narrative and began saying, how could he have killed himself when the nation says he was burnt to the bone? And then they began rioting and throwing stones. So I think that's what changed, and I think took the government into shock, because that narrative couldn't work anymore.
The late Ambassador Bethuel Kiplagat was the permanent secretary in Ouko's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ambassador Dr. Kipyego Cheluget was 5 years old in the ministry, while Burudi Nabwera was Ouko's cabinet colleague. Questions lingered: why was Ouko assassinated and by whom? Answers have never been given and might never be given.
That one is a tough one for me personally. The mysterious way he died was so painful that even up to today, it's still a mystery what really happened.
It was not an iota that something was not going well. He had people who are against him or looking for, I just couldn't understand. That's what makes it so painful when the person just disappeared and then found him murdered, as far as I'm concerned.
Robert Ouko's death was a puzzle because Robert Ouko was very loyal to the system. And in his own way, it was difficult for me, as a member of parliament and a minister colleague of Robert Ouko, to accept the fact that Robert Ouko would be a threat to the system. So to me, it still remains a puzzle why Robert Ouko would be assassinated.
A country that has such a prominent person dying in such a way, your foreign minister, who had all the contacts around the world, who was well respected, is killed in a casual way, in a very brutal way like that. It had a terrible impact. I think many countries were viewing Kenya as not a safe place.
As to why such a high-ranking government official was brutally killed, several motives behind the death were advanced. One, a fallout with President Moi's kitchen cabinet as a result of President Moi's visit to USA. A second motive was a dossier on corruption scandal he was about to release regarding Kisumu molasses processing plant and other graft matters that would have implicated then Energy Minister Nicholas Biwott, Agriculture's Elijah Mwangale, as well as Vice President and Minister for Finance Professor George Saitoti. The third theory was local politics, whereby Job Omino, whom Ouko had defeated during the 1988 election for Kisumu town parliamentary seat, was identified as a person of interest. Then, family feud was also listed owing to the fact that at the time of his murder, he was not seeing eye to eye with his two younger brothers, Barack Mbaja and Collins. Then there was also an aspect of a love affair. The last three were easily knocked off, leaving power struggles in Moi's kitchen cabinet and corruption as possible causes. Before traveling to the US for the prayer breakfast, Kenya's ambassador Dennis Afande had advised that the trip be rescheduled. However, President Moi insisted on traveling. In America, President George Bush declined to meet Moi one-on-one, but instead met 3 African presidents all at once in a hotel and not in the White House. As a result, it was Robert Ouko in his capacity as Foreign Affairs Minister who addressed a news conference trying to save face for Kenya, especially on infringement on human rights, whereby several politicians and activists were serving years in detention without trial as agitation for multipartyism intensified. This is said to have infuriated a cabal in Moi's inner circle, who felt that he was being groomed to dislodge Moi from power.
We believe sincerely we are due to misunderstanding and misrepresentation of facts about the situation in Kenya. When a group of people go underground and take an oath to overthrow a government constitutionally elected into parliament, and the government then action to make sure that peace is preserved in the country. We do not see human rights dimension in that process. We're dealing with criminal intent, and we're dealing with them in a manner by the laws of Kenya, and in a way consistent with the constitutional traditions of our country. I think sincerely there was misunderstanding and misrepresentation which you were country.
It is as if the leadership thought that the superpower may think of overthrowing the leadership that was there and helping Ouko to take over as the president.
And at that time, there was a lot of clamor for democracy in Kenya, and there were protests by many groups about, repression in Kenya, political repression in Kenya. So the president was put to task.
Actually, that was the climax of all that they were thinking about. And even Ouko was threatened right when he was in America. That is where he was told now, where he was called by somebody, Mr. President. It was in America.
James Hwatenge is a former member of the then Lethal Special Branch Unit, Force Number P/number 123274, that was responsible for inflicting torture and eliminating individuals perceived to have been anti-government. He was dismissed from the service at the rank of police inspector and has lately been very generous with information on Kenya's dark past.
But I'm a believer in the Bible where it says, tell the truth and the truth shall set you free. So my fellow intelligence officers who are connected to political wrongdoings, including assassinations, we met with them in Uhuru Park with some military people called Voka, victims of coup attempt in 19. We felt that we should come out openly because even the intelligence officers were psychologically suffering for what they did. And I just found myself deep into the thing. I can't come out because at that time the intention then was that these officers who wronged people should go some sort of counseling, but it was just left that way.
He alleges that before his killing, Ouko had escaped an arranged road accident in Awasi along Kisumu-Kericho Road as he was traveling to his home. His assassins were on his trail all the way from Nairobi.
The first officer on the scene was Inspector Achesa Litabalia of the traffic. Achesa Litabalia was later followed and killed. They blew him up with this 6 kilograms total meko. That is how he died. So Achesa Litabalia, an inspector of police, traffic, deputy base commander, as he was surveying the scene, drawing the way they draw, Corporal Barnabas Lubisia, alias Baluke of the Kisumu Special Branch came. And you see this already is in Rift Valley, outside the jurisdiction of Nyanza. This fellow came, he identified himself as a special branch officer and chased away Achesa Litabalia. In disciplined forces, a corporal chasing away an inspector is unheard of.
On Saturday 10th February, the minister attended an event organized by the Rotary Club in Kisumu at the Imperial Hotel, where he continued praising KANU regime, explaining his close ties with Moi. That was his last public engagement and the last time he was heard of.
And you feel proud to walk around the world as a Kenyan, particularly when you're the Kenyan in charge of foreign affairs. You feel happy. Kenya's name is good. It is good because of President Moi's efforts here and overseas. I was privileged to be in New York last week, in Washington, and I can tell you The Americans were a bit surprised, pleasantly surprised. The president is a Christian, so he got hold of the Bible and he preached for half an hour. At the end of it, almost all the 3,000 people wanted to come and shake hands with him because he said, if you ever come to Kenya, don't hesitate to call me. And Americans lined up to take his telephone number. And I want to tell you that our beloved President, His Excellency Daniel Arap Moi, has done to Kenya more than any other person could have done. He has put me in charge of this ministry to assist him in creating, portraying, protecting a favorable image of Kenya outside Kenya. I've done this with great joy because the real task is being done by the President himself. After he has cleared the air around the world for Kenya, I just go around to see if there's any doubt I see.
On Monday night, February 12th, unknown persons abducted him from his home in Koru on the Kericho-Kisumu border. Some reports indicate that Ouko knew all was not well, planned to escape, and was waiting for both Hezekiah Oyugi and former Nakuru DC Jonah Anguka, who was his close friend, to whisk him away and would leave the house as soon as their vehicles, which he was familiar with, arrived.
Anguka did not go. But what I know is that when the vehicles arrived, he went to open the vehicle, thinking that he was going to see Kina Anguka, Kina Oyugi, but he found security personnel armed with rifles. Let me not say G3, but with rifles, and they were putting on the Django uniform. That is when he tried to run away. And then he was held, and when he tried to shout, he was, and you know when you shout and your neck is held, you make a noise like that of a goat when it's about to be killed. And that is how Selina heard it.
The indications that he had planned to escape to another destination. He had changed his clothes, he was wearing a kitenga, that kind of thing. And there was some bag, small bag with some clothes on. He had everything ready. And I think the people who were supposed to collect him to help him escape came with another team. And this team got him at the gate. The workers indicated that they had him cry like a hyena, so one of them said. You know, that sound, that terrifying sound that somebody makes when they are in mortal danger. Shouted at the top of his voice. And I think that is when one of these abductors hit him in the leg, because I think he tried to run away. But they hit him on the ombong. You know ombong, the ankles.
The minister was assassinated that night. The location where he was murdered remains in contention. According to the report of the Gor Sungu-led Parliamentary Select Committee that investigated Ouko's killing, it was done in Nakuru State House, as per what the former Special Branch Police Inspector informed the committee. He said Ouko was delivered in State House when he had been tortured already.
He was kneeling down, and in the process of kneeling down, you remember he had a broken leg, so it is so painful. But he was kneeling down. Biwoto was on his left side, and Moi was in front of him. So Biwoto was telling Ouko to accept, to confess that he was planning to, he was undermining the president. The word is undermining. And that he was sorry, and he was apologizing, and he was to say that he will never do that again. He told the president that I am a sincere friend and I can never want anything bad to you. Then Biwot pretended. It is a fake annoyance. He pretended to be annoyed, took out a pistol, shot Ouko from this side, and Ouko died. And then immediately Biwott apologized to President and said, Mzee, I'm just sorry. I was overtaken by emotions. That is what Inspector Wekesa from Nisiho told me and what Inspector Kinyanji from Limuru told me.
No, they say this person was taken to State House, Nakuru, for torture and interrogation. And I think by the time he was reaching Nakuru, they were almost done with him. And then whoever wanted to interrogate, now why bring somebody you are done with him. So then, I think according to the investigation, they found a way of making sure it's dropped back wherever and possibly his body mutilated. Yeah.
He was not taken to Nakuru like the report says. That we had to do because of members insisting that we write what was given us as evidence. But when I talked to Troon, Superintendent Troon of Scotland Yard, he specifically mentioned having seen damage marks on guava leaves where Ouko had been found lying dead.
It was very clear from the pathologists from Scotland Yard, there's no way he would have been killed at Gotalila. He was killed elsewhere, and the body brought to Gotalila to allow the discovery. Now, according to the Scotland pathologist, after being killed, he was actually grilled. It was like nyamachoma. His body was taken through fire of burning and toasting. And then now it was brought to the scene, and according to the pathologists, they poured something probably like diesel to enhance the burning of the remains. But he was killed elsewhere and brought there. If he had been killed there and burnt there, then the entire hill would have set ablaze. Now, as to why he was killed, that one remains a mystery.
Ouko was discovered missing on Wednesday, 14th February, when he failed to show up at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to lead a Kenyan delegation to the Gambia after President Moi cancelled traveling. There would have been Ouko's entourage waited for hours on end, but he was no show. 24 hours later, state broadcaster KBC Radio and Television announced to the country that, and I quote, "The family of the Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Robert Ouko, has reported that the minister left his Koru home on Tuesday, February 13th in the morning, and has not been seen since. Could Dr. Ouko please contact his family or the nearest police station? Any member of the public who might have information about the minister's whereabouts should report to the nearest police station."
In my view, they killed him and probably tried to buy time and gauge the national mood before releasing the story of death.
The following day, on Friday, February 16th, 1990, President Daniel Arap Moi issued a statement officially announcing the death of his minister in charge of foreign affairs, which read in part, "It is with profound sorrow that I have to announce the death of Honorable Robert Ouko. On learning of the report of his disappearance on Wednesday, the government mounted an intensive search for Dr. Ouko, using all means at its disposal. Dr. Ouko's partly burnt body was discovered 6 kilometers away from his Koru home in circumstances which at the moment suggest foul play. Further investigations are being conducted into the death. But I would like to assure the public that anyone who may be associated with this horrible event will most certainly be apprehended and brought to justice. The Special Branch and CID units began to investigate the murder, but when pressure intensified, President Moi was forced to call in Britain's Scotland Yard detectives, Superintendent John Troon, Inspector Dennis and DS Sanderson, and Dr. Lane Eric West, a forensic pathologist who arrived in Kenya 5 days later on 21st February. They began at the Lee Funeral Home conducting a second post-mortem, disregarding the initial one that had been conducted by Chief Government Pathologist Jason Cavity. The badly burnt body, a broken ankle, a single gunshot in the skull and the theory of suicide were explicit opposites. In his examination of the body, the British pathologist extracted 10 exhibits: the clothing chest, clothing left leg, stomach, blood, urine, entry and exit wounds, skull, hair around the entry point, and denture which was returned for burial. The samples were taken to London's Metropolitan Police Forensic Science Laboratory, where preliminary conclusions revealed that Robert Ouko died as a result of a single firearm wound to the head. There was nothing to indicate that the body was on fire while he was alive. The nature of the heat damage indicating a slow but intense fire which caused severe burning of the back of the trunk to the abdomen and to a lesser degree to the limbs. Nothing was found to indicate the deceased had been on fire while in an upright position. The amount of skull damage was more severe than one normally associated with a standard 38mm special round. A slightly more powerful round could produce that injury. The movement of the head, the position of the gunshot wound, and the absence of flame burns on the face indicate the fatal injury was caused by another person. The fracture on the right ankle did not occur as a result of the fire. The body was set on fire in an attempt to destroy it. The suspicious death should be investigated as one of homicide. The cause of death is a firearm wound to the head.
That evening, with Oyugi, and the commissioner was there then, and Ouko was there, and a few others in Oyugi's house. And I specifically said to Oyugi that, as far as we are concerned, there is evidence to suggest that Dr. Ouko was murdered. He did not commit suicide. And Oyugi quite forcibly said to me, "Mr. Troon, you are wrong. The minister committed suicide." And I said, "I'm sorry, sir, but no, the evidence suggests quite contrary. He was murdered. And either I'll investigate the murder or I'll go back to London, let you get on with it."
And you see, when you shoot yourself, it takes 0.02 seconds for you to die, from the time the bullet enters your body to the time you die. And that is too short a time for you now to light a match. But those are the things they did in panic.
I remember when our committee went to London, I actually went personally to Scotland Yard to look at some of the files. You know, up to now, actually, Ouko's skull was still held at Guy's Hospital in London. And the gun and so on, of course, had been taken back to the government officials. They were taken there. But a lot of specimens and so on still held in London.
When Moi liked somebody, he liked them deeply. And from the people that I've interacted with, he liked Ouko deeply. And that's why I believe he literally risked his life. He was head of state, yes. But attending the burial was the major risk he took as head of state. And I think we'll make a statement by being there.
Ouko's assassination led to violent protests staged by university students and residents of the lakeside town of Kisumu. The slain minister was buried 8 days later after his body was discovered. Emotions were still raw. A cloud of anger engulfed Kisumu and his Koru home. Hearts were heavy and still bleeding, with razor-sharp tension being felt across the corners. The government was the main and only suspect, but it had to be a state funeral.
Ouko murder set Kisumu ablaze. I don't think today the government has ever released figures of people who were killed in the Ouko riots alone. I believe it runs into hundreds of individuals. Men and women who were murdered, girls who were raped, men who were sodomized by security apparatus. It runs into hundreds. You may never know the figures. The temperatures were extremely high. I remember when we were driving to Koru pretty early, around 6 a.m. You could actually see red berets lying in the sugar plantations. So I think the entire military and the entire security apparatus moved to Kisumu and to Koru on the eve of the barrio and the barrio day. Now, all university students, all young Kenyans, had also gathered there. And they were burning. You could feel the anger. So I remember when Dolo Aya stood up it was like the MC, to address the crowd. First mistake he did was try and speak in English. And they told him no. Dolo Wachidolo. Address us in Kijaluo. And then they began singing anti-Kanu and anti-Moi songs, saying that you killed Ouko, you burnt Ouko, now eat him. So I was standing close to the dais with the late Chege Mbitiru. And I just imagine now, as a reporter, if a riot broke out there, no amount of force would have saved the head of state from the surging crowd. No amount of gunfire would have rescued his life. But the man stood firm and he addressed the crowd. Now, one person I think who helped to sway and calm nerves was the widow, Christabel. Pleaded to the crowd that my husband loved peace. So let's offer him that respect. That's the only person they listened to. They didn't want to listen to Ndolo Aya or anybody else, but they listened to Madam Christabel. Moi just sat still. As I'm saying, I look at him as a very brave man. He just sat there, no blinking. He looked very calm. He was very sure of himself. He gave his address and drove off with his chopper.
Energy Minister at the time, Nicholas Biwott, was perceived as the main suspect, alongside Internal Security Permanent Secretary Hezekiah Oyugi and Nakuru DC Jonah Anguka. The Scotland Yard detectives continued with their investigations and handed over their report to Attorney General Matthew Guy Muli in September that year. President Moi established a commission of inquiry that comprised Court of Appeal judges Ivan Gisheru and Richard Kwach, High Court Judge Akilano Akiumi, with Bernard Chunga as its counsel. The commission conducted proceedings in Kisumu, but after 8 months, on 26 November 1991, Moi disbanded the commission. The very day PS Hezekiah Oyugi was to appear before it, he ordered Police Commissioner Philip Kilonzo to begin fresh investigations. What followed was the immediate arrest of Nicholas Biwott, who had been sacked from cabinet a week earlier. Powerful Internal Security PS Hezekiah Oyugi, Nakuru DC Jonah Anguka, Ouko's lawyer George Oraro, James Koyo, Police Officer Ajuga, banker Paul Gondi, Ouko's house help Selina Were, his cousin Oukoreru, and farm manager Philip Rodi.
The mother, why am I being arrested? I said, we don't know. Why are you being arrested? So they told me also to wait. I waited there anxiously. And as I was waiting, I saw Oyuki coming out of a cell, and Anguka and Oraro. Yeah, those are the ones I can remember very vividly.
All those were covered up because when they started, then the information was coming out. Now, this information was going to put the government in jeopardy. And so what do? Because it may have reached to the top man. So they had to disorganize them so that those evidences again disappears and pretend to be arresting these people and again release them, that there is no evidence.
The only route that would have brought up the story was the Commission of Inquiry. That was a powerful commission, the judiciary one. The judges were brave individuals, Akiumi, Kilano Maladi Akiumi, Justice Kwach, Gisheru himself. These were brave individuals, and I think the job was well cut out. I remember Gisheru calling the media to tell them, even asked me, are you the one who put the 22 million into my account? I said, no, my lordship, I have not handled that kind of money. The system deposited some money into their individual accounts, millions of shillings. And the commissioners told whoever it is, through the media, please take back your money. You don't want it. So they were being coerced, they were being pressured, they were being threatened. I remember having a drink with the pathologist, Ndaka Kaviti. We would seek them out in the evening for a drink and just try to get deeper story into the murder. So I met him at the Sunset Hotel where the commissioners used to sleep. After a few drinks, the man burst into tears, says, you should just leave me alone. I've done my bit. I've done what they wanted me to do. Just leave me alone. So imagine you're being forced to even write a pathologic report that doesn't make sense. Because the Kaviti arrived at the scene, looked at the body, and said, yes, he committed suicide. Because he was being pushed by the system. I think they never gave you options. You either write this, you follow the other character.
All the suspects were released after 14 days, except Jonah Anguka, who was the only person charged with Ouko's murder. However, the trial ended following the death of Justice Fida Hussein Abdallah in November 1992 before he could deliver his ruling. Another trial was started against Anguka in 1994, but Justice Daniel Aganyanya acquitted him of all the charges. He fled the country but later wrote a book while in exile titled Absolute Power, The Ouko Murder Mystery, in which he accused President Moi, Cabinet Minister Nicholas Biwott and PS Hezekiah Oyugi of Ouko's heart-wrenching murder. According to a parliamentary select committee report that probed the disappearance and murder of Robert Ouko, several people who are either suspects, witnesses in Robert Ouko's case, or close associates died mysteriously. Those named include powerful PS Hezekiah Oyugi, Provincial Commissioner for Nyanza Julius Kobia, and Belgut DC Peter Muhoro. Former Police Commissioner Philip Kilonzo, who was leading investigations, dropped dead when having a drink after being tricked to receive a call, leaving his drink unattended. Others were Nyanza Provincial Police Officer Jadiel Kivaite, Provincial Criminal Investigations Officer in charge of Rift Valley Province Nehemiah Ombati, Koru Police Station Officer Charles Nzomo, Martin Ochanda, who was attached to Kisumu Special Branch Office, who was Ouko's friend, and Joseph Yogo, Ouko's driver, among others.
The guy who was handling his flight details died mysteriously, and the government took care of his burial arrangements. So the family and then but we're taking care of it. And then most people who were supposed to testify, either the nurse, some doctors, I'll have to go back and look at the of the names. We just drop dead and we go. But there's one person who faked her death, Selina Ndalo, the house help. I think she worked pretty well with some trusted policemen, and even the media brought into the issue of her being dead, but she'd withdrawn deep into the village, where she stayed safely, I think many years later. Yeah, Kilonzo was the height of it when he came there with the pathologist to confirm that it was Ouko's murder. He was at his hotel in Dallas, enjoying, I think the current witnesses, he was taking a Sprite, soda. When he received a call, those days we didn't have mobile phones, to go and get the call from the office. He came back, took a sip and collapsed. So people claim it was cyanide.
Oyugi was taken ill while in police custody. He died when undergoing treatment in London. It is said he died a painful death.
As he told me that as you see me here, I'm a dying person. Then he went to the narrative of the day they were arrested with Biwot. He was taken to, I think, Kilimani police station. He was kept for many hours without food and drink. So when he became thirsty, he made a fatal mistake. A mistake that people like Jaramogi avoided. Whenever they were arrested, they would not take soda or water in a police station. Unless it was brought by the people from home, they wouldn't drink or eat anything. I think he told me that he took a sip of that soda, I think it was also Sprite, and he passed out. So he remembers when he came around, it must have been the 14 days later, that window period that was given by the Constitution of holding a witness. He says when he came around, he had some itchy feeling at the back of his neck, and there were some scratch marks. That's what he remembers. And then he was soon told he had the motor neuron disease. His body just disintegrated, and he died.
Oyugi died. The way he died, you know, even Saitot was about to die. You know why he was dying? He was poisoned. Even his skin peeled off. You know, when the PS died, how he looked like, what he was. So I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I just believe some people may have poisoned them or whatever.
When President Kibaki regime took over, among its key priorities was revisiting some of the ills and injustices perpetrated by the KANU regime, with Ouko assassination being one among those top on the agenda. A parliamentary select committee investigating circumstances leading to the death of Ouko, chaired by then Kisumu Town Member of Parliament Eric Gorsungu, claims his team faced roadblocks from the onset.
It took us like almost 6 months before we could have the first sitting. Even the sitting space was a problem in Parliament, which is very unusual for a committee of Parliament. Okay? And, you know, you could read, you could just see straight away that the people who were in charge of Parliament were not happy to let it go. They were instructed to put as much roadblocks as possible. And we had to do extraordinary things to make things move.
As expected, the House summoned several persons of interest, but of course, the star witness was Nicholas Biwot.
Order, Mr. Biwot, I think now you have had sufficient time. It's your passport, you must know, and can confirm to us that you did not travel with Dr. Ouko on 27th January 1990. Can you confirm that?
No, the record shows that there is an exit stamp on the 25th of January 1990.
Yes, is there another exit stamp on 27th?
Yeah, I don't see it, but I'm sure I went on that flight of the presidential.
But now, Honorable Biwott, we have Dr. Ouko's passport here, which we can give you the benefit to check. And he left on the 27th of January. Now, do you want to tell us that you live together, yours is stamped 25th and his is stamped 27th? Is it possible at the airport that, you know, they stamp different dates when you are living on the same date? And did you leave? Were you at the airport on 25th? If you were, where were you going on the 25th? Can we show you? I believe it.
And for the 3 days that Biwott appeared before the Ouko Murder Probe Committee, sittings were punctuated with fierce exchanges between a house team seemingly determined to nail him and a besieged Biwott who appeared unshaken, leading to a standoff that saw committee sittings come to an end.
All I was asking is equal opportunity with the others. If it pleases the committee, I'll be willing to convert this into a statement.
But here is a case where you want to ambush this committee by submitting the statement minus those details now you want to talk about. And then you want now go and read them. I rule that you are out of order and you want to proceed on the basis of that.
The former powerful minister stood his ground.
All I'm asking is the same thing. We can go, as I read the paragraph, you can ask me.
Mr. Biwott, because you are adamantly refusing to recognize the ruling of the chair, this committee is now adjourning.
And I had actually written, everything was written more or less. I wanted to present it to the committee. And then after that they will cross-examine me, but they refused. They said they will not entertain that.
Now, Mr. Biwott, I am inclined now to rule you out of order and rule that we must proceed as we have been proceeding. I will not entertain any further questions. If you want to withdraw, you can withdraw. If you refuse...
I said, please let me present my side of the story and then question me. So they said no. So I pleaded with them. They said, you are intimidating them. Mr. Chairman,
Honorable Biwott,
please, Mr.
actually, who gives a permission for people to talk here? It is the chairman.
Right now, the chair has ruled, and I believe I'm right, and we must proceed. If you will not, if you will insist on interceding any further, I'm going to adjourn this proceeding.
Read to
order.
Read it now, so that everybody will know exactly what I read.
I think honorable members now we have
because I have not.
Proceedings. We will now adjourn these proceedings.
Because that was only.
I think the proceedings are adjourned.
That was only an introductory. If you read it, I had not even begun giving my evidence, and it will continue. You're shutting me out. So I insisted, and I stood my ground. So they got fed up and they went. They left.
The committee completed its work when it was sharply divided. Only 6 members allied to the ruling coalition NAC signed the report, while 3 who were in the official opposition party KANU refused to append their signatures and got an additional support from a member of NAC. The majority who signed the report were Gor Sungu, Dr. Oburu Oginga, Professor Christine Mango, Joe Hamisi, Raphael Bita Sauti Wanjala, and Kiema Kilonzo. KANU MPs who refused to sign were Samuel Moroto, Samile Shore, Amina Abdallah, and Peter Munya from NAC.
Our report was ready within 2 years, and we tabled it in Parliament. I tabled it in Parliament. The next 2 years, it was never discussed. The responsibility of allocating time to discuss reports, bills, or anything in the House rests with the House Business Committee. Among the members are the top politicians even of today, but above all, the likes of Biwott were there. Chairman was Ole Kaparo. They I think that's now I remember what you are now saying. They refused to table it until I made a statement in the House crying that why, this is going to give us a bad name. Please bring it here, we discuss it. If it's to be rejected, let it be rejected. If it's accepted, let it be accepted. It was never brought in my time, because if they did that, I would be able to explain to members exactly what was going on and spill some of the bills that had still left behind because you don't give everything in a report. You must leave something for when you're doing the verbal report. And that we were denied that chance.
Former Speaker Francis Ole Kaparo was accused of frustrating efforts to have the report debated. When reached for comment, he dismissed the claims, saying it was hogwash. There must be true records in Parliament. James Hwatenge is the only former special branch detective who appeared before the committee to testify.
People who are working in special branch, some of them are leaving. At that time it was special branch, today it's called National Intelligence Service. The reasons why they were running away, because not all of them ran away, but few of them ran away. Few of them have suffered out of this, like Hwatenge, Wajakoyo were part of those people who ran away, and they are Angukas.
Baba saved me wakati nilikuwa na wawa na ile serikali ya wakatili. Ni baba aliyofanya kazi kubwa sana, na niseme nisiseme, baba na ubalozi wa Amerikani, ule mtu anaitwa Smith Hempston, they are the ones who rescued me from this country, wakanipeleka ng'ambo wakati ya mauaji ya daktari Ouko.
I tend to disagree with that inspector, now a professor, when he says that he was given duty to investigate Ouko's death. Luchiri Wajakoya used to work in music room. There was a room where I used to dub. Those are the days when we had this walkie-talkie. So in the music room, we used to have earphones and whatever. So they used to say that is a music room where you listen to people. Wajakoya listened and heard Biwott talking to Moi on phone, and he recorded it on a compact cassette, where Moi was blasting Biwott saying, unaona vile umenifanyia. Because if Biwott would not have shot, you remember during Kanu meeting, Moi even told Biwott that you are supposed to have been in jail. He was referring to this and maybe other issues.
In April 1992, the Sunday Times publication in London published a report that was attributed to former Special Branch Officer George Wajakoya, who was a fugitive at the time, which indicated Ouko was killed in State House, Nakuru. When contacted for comment, Wajakoya declined, saying, and I quote, "Kindly keep me out of this." Ouko's assassination remains to be Kenya's most high-profile murder in the country's history, since the first assassination of politician Pio Gamapinto in 1965.
It was really a gem for the Moi government. That's why his death ran so bitter and so deep. And I don't think any other death has come with so many individuals falling with the key guy like it happened in Ouko's murder. So it won't go away soon. The key suspects might have died, but we keep hoping that one day the real story will be told.
It is 33 years since the Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation Minister was murdered, but even those who probed his death can't dare mention the suspects involved, despite the process having been a public affair. For them, it is simply can't name, won't name.
I'm not even afraid of anything. I just don't have the time for things that will create disability in my life. I want to have a peaceful retirement. I don't want to be called by anybody, because the things I did in Parliament or parliamentary work, I've done my bit. Now it is my time. It's now my time.
It made us also to be very mean with information And even as I'm talking to you, I'm very mean on the information, simply because someone may take me to court. But if I wanted to call Huatenge or to call Wajakoya to be my witness, they will refuse. Then I will be in trouble. It's not that what you are asking me that, oh, you know who killed, I know. But if I say it and some of them are living and they participated, they say now you have to prove. They will take me to court. Now, how do I prove? I need those witnesses that were mentioned who are there. Now, if I call them, they will not accept. So I'll be in trouble.
The perpetrators are in the record. If at all there was any prosecution or any interest in investigating this matter, I will rush Nairobi to give them all the details I have. Documentary and things are kept in my mind. Anytime, no government in Kenya has been willing. In Kenya, it's not just the Ouko murder. In Kenya, justice looks like a passing cloud.
So where we reached, but we know the spirit of Ouko has also worked. It has really haunted them. They have really died miserably.
You see, we had also taken this oath of office that whatever we learn in our official way, we cannot disclose. Actually, what I'm doing, I'm committing a crime that is called under Official Secrets Act, because I'm talking of what I'm not supposed to have said that. But going to jail is a smaller price than the truth coming out.
The committee, which discharged its functions divided in the middle, says there was intimidation all through to have the team bungle the process.
One time, at night, I was called by somebody whose call I could not refuse. Their house in Lavington. And there, I saw who is who. And of course, no words, bad words were exchanged. But I kept wondering why I was called there at that time. Mind you, because of my position, I took my bodyguard with me, but also alerted my cousin, then Chief Inspector Otieno. So my neighbor is late. He was the deputy OCS at Kabete, and I was his, and so he gave me extra officers to go with me, trail me as we're going in a car. Because I was wondering, why would I be called in the middle of the night, almost like 11 p.m., 10 p.m., when most people have gone to bed. That really concerned me. And perhaps the reason why I'm not in Parliament now, but that's a story for another day, when I write my memoir.
The former legislator says he was kept for over an hour past midnight, but no one spoke to him. Neither was he offered anything, but the individuals continued with their coded conversations.
And there was no meeting as such. You know, some communications can be verbal, some can be through expression, or just by seeing.
So how many people were present and who were they?
From a central bank. For 6 people. I had to take a roundabout route with the other car in tow. But anybody, I don't know. There was no physical threat, but I wondered why I was called. There was no physical threat because some of them were my closest friends. I think it was instructions without words. Okay.
The 6 were a former top official in the National Treasury. his close associate a powerful businessman, both from Rift Valley, a current high-ranking politician in the country, a former member of parliament and assistant minister Orwa Ojode, a top high court advocate who is now a senior counsel and a former banker. It is now 33 years since February 1990 when a herder stumbled upon the body of the late Robert Ouko that had been dumped at Got Alila behind me. Now the country might have moved on and so many things, but what remains constant is the famous Got Alila, the theories and mystery that until today is yet to be unraveled on the shocking and brutal murder of Kenya's high-profile politician and leader. Duncan Haemba, NTV at Got Alila in Koru.